Nyonji chembor zordar nyume jang, zoner monam chembor nga gyabda, bakar dargan zanto, shirmurdo. Shtumba dik je jan la zhong zorlo, ni jarur zer ngi jangamsa, jawar tik jibshan la yelan. Jime banzo zhang la soranda, kongdi toban bhavara shinjilo, kongdi toban bhavara shinjilo, kongdi toban bhavara shinjilo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please give rise to the unsurpassed and supreme bodhicitta.
Devjinde ngumbudu jibshavi nyaratang, jibshong jibshavi nyaratang, shangchi jibshavi nyaratang, zangchuk jibshavi nyaratang, merlan jibshavi nyaratang, mekye jibshavi nyaratang, merta jibshavi nyaratang, mezuk jibshavi nyaratang, mere jibshavi nyaratang, merdo jibshavi nyaratang, memar jibshavi nyaratang, merdoma jibshavi nyaratang, mefshargut jibshavi nyaratang, sakchak jibshavi nyaratang, sakchak 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 jibshavi nyaratang, pakshi jibshavi nyaratang, changtong jibshavi nyaratang, sakchak Samdrak jibshavi nyaratang, pakshi jibshavi nyaratang, changtong jibshavi nyaratang, lakchak jibshavi nyaratang, kangchak jibshavi nyaratang, tserlok jibshavi nyaratang, mekim jibshavi nyaratang, chakkim jibshavi nyaratang, mekyan jibshavi nyarala sokba yopa tetag, susur layang, teli mangvi nyara chongwa, chigdang, nidang, samdang, Jini gyartung gwartar namjang manjawa namba tatat patama yodo shanchib sanwa sayi nyambu phagba kandu zangbolar meba phagba lag dono loon zangwalang ka semchin namji digbab shibi ligi nawa yano deyang ligi nibana shinda chewi shir ririb le kyang hupam towa tang gyamso le kyang tang zaba tang Phagbar namji lam kyang, phagbi lam nam kyang, dribar shina semchin ji digbi le chung yang, magnu nyamda sembar mafshar te, shivi jis, chanyak tsam yang chizu mebar le jir nambar mamba, nyamsim nyongrin gyoro, pa var tavi nyenye yan yang chevi tse, lam susur jirte, nrovar gyerwa la, Gachit chonzin chapar jiryang ring le narman nyongwa le janji lembir kab mamchi so daga tangdar sanji jim talab tenir digbir nambar mambi ton nam dipir ko ne tamba yin la phagbe gyang tertar dak sambaran sar teni shanchib sanwa kandu zambu landar meba daga chi togma meba ne ngansong samji lejir nambar jagba yongsi sinayang Maung digi tami semjin namgi lengan bib shopar nar pangni sanji ji lamlab drupi chet tertar tamba yeno. Teni shanchib sanwa sayi nyambur mebam pagbala. Yang nyari semjin namgi digbi nambar mambanan dartar te. Nyaran gajigna semjin ji sien teni tir tangda jan mowa tang. Nyaran gajigna digbi semjin ji nyang langne te nojin namgi zawa tang. Nyaran gajigna Shlanga chimbo chukur ki nangda Digba semchin namgi len tsepada. Nyaran gajigna zangir doma raptan barwa digchin semchin terin kittab chigbata. Nyaran gajigna raptan barwi meshchi yi digchin gi semchin tedag nyabr meshchi Meshchi digchingi semjin tedag nyabr shebada. Nyaran gajigna changar raptar dangwi semjin tedag kangwar shebada. Nyaran gajigna shangchi varnsam mepar kangwa dang. Nyaran gajigna put chimpar shebada. Nyaran gajigna memdan sabada. Nyaran gajigna Dangib dagba nyaran gajigna semchin tetak kanglag mragbar shebada nyaran gajigna chagjargi kunnin kibr shebada nyaran gajigna chagki kunnin chubr shebada nyaran gajigna chagjargi kunnin njabr shebago phabala nyara susu legir nambar mambana terter lagna ter le tribi Nyarin Soncha, Yarton Mambo, Ndertarte, Zandang, Chagdang, Dodang, Mayung Povjili, Tripa Shartar Yano, Nyari Simpson Namji Legis Cabernet Testarta Wo. Gatu Nyari Simpson Namji Double Legis number member Jirma Namjurno, Nyara Ri Nanda Yang, Yarton to me Dinger Dana, Nyara Mambu, Nanda Telejan, Mumago. So the Katandra Senji Zimjerdam, Pabaniki, Travala, Tenne, there started deeper goni. Nyapalakso, Kat, Jebrishana, Karivarta, Zapim Tamamchiso, Say Nyambusa, Molum Jim Dole, Nyari Munger, Namjak, Lager, Nabago.
Next, we will proceed to discuss the profound Ksitigarbha Sutra. Specifically, the Ksitigarbha Sutra is currently engaged in thoroughly discussing the significant chapter that details the names of the hells. Yesterday, we extensively discussed some of the immense cruelty and profound suffering that is experienced within the terrifying depths of hell. As human beings in our current existence, we are incredibly fortunate that we have not yet fallen into the three evil realms, which are truly dreadful states of being, and most importantly, we have not fallen into the most horrific of these, hell itself. This should be considered as an extremely fortunate circumstance. Sometimes we may experience all kinds of mental pain and physical suffering, but these pains, these very pains, just as it is profoundly said in the sacred letter to a friend, there is simply no conceivable way to use any suffering or hardship in this entire world as a true comparison. So, in our human world, we often say that something is as painful as hell, extremely, extremely painful. But in reality, our human suffering, it should be said, is very light compared to the beings in hell who suffer endlessly. Everyone should be clear about this point as well in our understanding. Today we will continue to discuss the Ksitigarbha Sutra. First, I will just briefly talk a little bit about a few things in detail. The merits of the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In the ancient Han dynasty, there was once a distinguished official who firmly believed in the principles of Taoism and consequently did not place his faith in the sacred three jewels. However, at a later point, he unfortunately contracted a severe illness, and this debilitating illness persisted for a considerably long period of time. His wife was a sincere believer in the three jewels. Later, in a heartfelt effort to cure his illness, she earnestly prayed to the revered deity Ganesha. The significant answer she ultimately received was that if a magnificent statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva could be meticulously made within just one day, her beloved husband's serious illness would certainly be cured. Upon her return to their home, she immediately recounted the entire situation to her husband. Her husband was not only willing to accept, but also solemnly made a heartfelt vow. He vowed to have the statue made within a day, but for the time being, he didn't want to do it. He made the vow, but for now, perhaps because his illness was quite serious, he said, "If I receive some kind of sign or response, then I will find a way to make the magnificent statue. Only then, and only then, will I truly believe." After being gravely ill for some time, her beloved husband sadly passed away. After her husband died, the wife was especially heartbroken. At that time, there were many people, so many different people around. There were all sorts of different opinions. Those with faith said that the husband didn't believe in karma or the law of cause and effect at all, didn't make a Ksitigarbha statue, and didn't take refuge. That's why he died. Those individuals without any faith whatsoever said his death was related to his wife's held beliefs. There was a significant amount of intense debate with many differing views and perspectives, but his devoted wife very much hoped and prayed that he would miraculously come back to life. Then, after a full day and an entire night had completely passed, one whole day and night, he suddenly and unexpectedly woke up. After he finally woke up, he immediately noticed that things were very different from before in many significant ways. He was extremely heartbroken, feeling immense sorrow, and kept crying continuously. At one point, he even wanted to cut off his own tongue. He was so distraught, so deeply distraught, and filled with terrible remorse and regret. He also told his wife, "You are truly a virtuous friend, a truly precious, virtuous friend." If it weren't for you, I would have fallen into hell. You have graciously allowed me to extend my precious life and to truly attain complete liberation, and so on and so forth. He spoke to her like this. His wife didn't even know the reason either. She asked him about everything that had happened to him. In the end, he conveyed the story to her. He explained that after his passing, there appeared a multitude of formidable guards and numerous messengers, all in the service of the Lord of Death. These imposing figures meticulously escorted him on a solemn journey directly to the presence of the Lord of Death. Upon his arrival at that formidable and awe-inspiring destination, the Lord of Death was very displeased and said, "This person has made a solemn vow to create a magnificent statue of Ksitigarbha, a truly remarkable undertaking. His vow has not yet been fulfilled. You brought him here before it was completed. This should not have happened." And then he began to fiercely beat those powerful gods of the Lord of Death. When the formidable Lord of Death completely loses his temper, it is indeed quite severe and terrifying. He immediately started violently beating them with immense force. Then the powerful Lord of Death sternly said to him, "Because of your devoted wife's profound kindness, you made a solemn vow to diligently create a magnificent statue. If you complete this statue, many sentient and conscious beings will greatly and profoundly benefit from it. Their karmic obstacles will be repented, and they will gain true benefit. In this case, do you want to return to the human world?" Of course, he truly wanted to return to the human world. Later, the Lord of Death, in his divine judgment, sent him back to the human world. After finally letting him go back, he eventually woke up. Then he deeply felt that during his entire lifetime, because of his malicious slander, he firmly believed it was his own treacherous tongue that ultimately caused it all. So, no matter what, he was absolutely determined to cut off his own tongue. That is precisely what he said. Later, his wife, who was very wise, said, "Wherever a person experiences a fall or a setback, that's precisely the spot where they should endeavor to get back up." She also wisely said, "Cutting off your own tongue is actually a completely useless action. We should make a revered statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In this way, on one hand, you can repent, then on the other hand, it is also beneficial to all sentient beings." He later listened to her advice, and then within a single day, he made a statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. He encouraged others, and he himself also made offerings and paid homage. He then successfully persuaded others by sharing his entire personal experience, and earnestly asked everyone to deeply venerate and diligently serve the sacred statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. So, in this particular story, actually there are many profound and inspiring stories about Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, are basically quite similar in their overall plot to this particular story. Many people, after dying, invariably arrive at the court of King Yama, the revered Lord of Dharma. Later, due to various responses, they return to the human world. This kind of experience. However, each individual story emphasizes and highlights different crucial points. For example, what exactly does this particular story specifically talk about? Some people, even though they do not possess genuine and true faith, still make a vow to create a statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In that particular case, they certainly won't have to fall into the depths of hell. There are indeed many stories like this that have been told. So, for everyone here today, in the future, you can also make such vows yourselves. Making a Ksitigarbha statue in the past was different from now. Nowadays, you might be able to buy a small Ksitigarbha statue for just a few yuan. There's really no problem with that, right? If you have the opportunity and the right conditions in the future, whether it's in your own temple or in a Dharma center, or even in your very own personal shrine at home, if you make some Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva statues, it will not only benefit yourself, but it will also benefit all sentient beings. And if you encourage others to practice virtuous deeds, it will be even more beneficial, because this particular person, in order to truly repent for his actions, was seriously contemplating cutting off his very own tongue. But in the end, he ultimately didn't have to physically harm his own body. So what exactly does this particular situation tell us? It clearly indicates that some people truly and deeply regret the things they have done. At a certain point, their regret reaches its peak. At that time, the only way is that he blames his own tongue. This has happened quite a lot throughout history. For example, Ashvaghosha composed the 50 stanzas on following a teacher and Buddha Charita. There was also such a story. Vasubandhu, the great scholar, also used to slander the Mahayana teachings in the past, quite vehemently and openly. Later, he was about to cut off his tongue. Bodhisattva Asanga told him, "Doing that is useless. You should write many more commentaries on Mahayana scriptures. That will be truly and profoundly beneficial. Then, in the significant case of Jampal Shenyen in the revered Vajrayana tradition, he also at first quite strongly slandered Vajrayana Buddhism. Indeed, you see. Later, he deeply repented before his Garab Dorje. He deeply thought that he should atone for his actions by severely cutting his own body. However, later on, his wise teacher also carefully told him, "Cutting off your tongue is useless. Write more treatises instead." Some of us may also, indeed, due to our environment in the past, or because of negative influences from bad teachers, don't understand Vajrayana or the Dharma. You've committed negative actions, verbal misdeeds. Perhaps you have created such negative karma, committed such verbal offenses. But cutting your own body is also useless, completely, utterly useless and meaningless. You should create images or write treatises yourself, sacred treatises yourself. Promoting the Dharma more is also very good, extremely very good, and beneficial. The analogy just mentioned is still very apt. Wherever you fall, you should get back up from there. For example, in a person's life, maybe you used to especially love eating succulent crabs, especially loved eating fish, or especially loved eating lamb. People like this, you may have indeed killed many, many sentient beings, perhaps even countless lives. How should one repent for such negative karma? Then, following the important principle of getting up where you fell, what exactly is it that you truly failed at in your life? It was in that area, so it is in that area. You should genuinely make up for your past mistakes. You should truly repent specifically in this particular regard. In this manner, it should be very good and beneficial. So here, we are also talking about, in addition, one is making a vow to create a statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Even if you have no faith, you will not fall into hell. Indeed, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's truly most inconceivable and profound blessing is that he can even transform fixed karma. This is something that indeed even most Buddhas and Bodhisattvas find quite difficult to do. Therefore, this is extremely important. Another is to prevent falling into hell. For those sentient beings who have fallen into hell, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has a close connection with hell. Therefore, he also possesses various effective ways to truly save those unfortunate sentient beings who have tragically fallen into the depths of hell. This is also extremely important, because if we don't have this kind of blessing power and miraculous strength from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, when we talk about hell, we all feel a bit nervous and fearful. Even when I talk about it or when I look at it in advance, I get a kind of feeling, a spine-chilling sensation. Oh, whether it's in my own personal lifetime or things that I truly can't even really actually well remember myself. In previous lives and even lives before that, I must have created many causes for hell. The causes for hell always exist in the alaya consciousness, and although they haven't ripened yet, once the conditions are right, isn't it possible I might fall into hell? In this life, having obtained a human body, I'm not even talking about attaining rainbow body or great realization. It's best not to fall into hell and to repent more often. Otherwise, if I were to fall there in the future, I might not even be able to properly recite the repentance mantras. So I think to myself, on the surface, I appear to be teaching the Dharma and doing some good deeds. But in reality, in this short human life, I may not have truly repented properly at all. When I get much older, I should choose a relatively better place for myself instead of constantly asking this or that every day, like, do you agree if I go into retreat? If I do that, probably no one would agree. Everyone is quite selfish. They think, you don't need to repent, you don't need to practice. Just teach us, just manage things for us, that's enough. A lot of people might say things like that. But at a certain point in my life, I should, in my much later years, be able to go into a peaceful and proper retreat, away from the hustle and bustle of daily life, and then recite repentance mantras to avoid falling into hell. Sometimes I think this way, and sometimes, maybe today I'm talking about the cruelty of hell, but in a few days, when I talk about the chapter on benefiting the living and the dead, it might not seem so serious. So I might feel a bit comforted, perhaps even a little reassured. That's precisely why, when we are talking about the concept of hell, it truly does make everyone feel a significant sense of uneasiness deep inside. In the past, in Tibetan area, there was a saying, monastics are supposed to be very happy, but listening to teachings on the precepts is very painful. There is such a saying, because originally monastics feel very happy themselves. But after hearing the precepts, this is a violation, that is a violation. So Young monks who have just recently been ordained are often very happy and content, but monks who listen to the precepts are quite miserable. There is this saying, perhaps it's a folk saying. So when we usually talk about some of the significant merits, especially when we talk Dzogchen, where nothing exists, not even afflictions, though we clearly know afflictions do exist. But as soon as we talk about it theoretically, when discussing Madhyamaka and Dzogchen, when afflictions are said not to exist, it feels very comfortable. There are no afflictions, nothing to worry about. I can just enjoy my food. That's how it feels. But in reality, when it comes to discussing karma and its effects, there are always some really deep and different feelings inside our hearts. So today, let's continue our important discussion, shall we? Yesterday, earlier, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said, "Virtuous one, within the iron encircling mountain there are so many hells. There are many, many more, so many, many more." And he also spoke about different ones, many different ones. I remember that in the past, Master Jingquan also had some outlines, some important outlines. There are different great masters, especially some of the great masters from ancient times, who also had different analyses of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. But this time, I really truly haven't had the necessary time to thoroughly go through all of them in complete detail. You see, several times now, I haven't even had time to finish reciting the opening and closing prayers. Originally, what I was most attached to was the daily recitations before and after class. I think the recitations before and after class are very important. They are truly the most important and essential recitations of the entire day. But sometimes when there are many more things to carefully handle here, I find that I can't even complete these crucial daily tasks every single day. In this particular case, there is simply no available time to thoroughly go through many extensive commentaries. However, as for the Ksitigarbha Sutra, I actually haven't really studied it in very great depth much before. When I was actually translating it this year, at that time I had a bit more free time, so I had carefully studied it in order to translate. The requirements for translation are different from those for giving regular lectures. When it comes to translation, it is truly important that you fully understand the complete meaning of every single word and every complete sentence. Consequently, at the very beginning of this current year, I dedicated myself to studying it with a considerable degree of care and thoroughness. That is precisely why I still vividly and clearly remember some of its details even now, in the present moment. And then there is that particularly dreadful and terrifying place, often referred to as the crying out hell, a realm of immense suffering and despair as we commonly articulate and describe it. It is more or less the same as the terrifying howling hell. This particular one mainly tortures the beings in hell by cruelly scalding their fragile bodies with intensely hot water. At such agonizing times, their bodies are in unbearable, excruciating pain. Just like in the intensely scorching and agonizing hot hells, such as the 8-petaled lotus hell and 16-petaled lotus hell, great lotus hell, the entire body burns with an unbearable intensity and painfully splits apart. This excruciating torment is primarily and fundamentally caused by a mind that is completely filled with overwhelming hatred. It leads one to fall into such hells.
Then there's the truly horrific tongue-plucking hell, a terrifying ordeal where intensely burning iron forks are consistently cruelly used to forcefully pull out the tongue, and then the tongue is brutally plowed like a fertile field, deeply furrowed and torn. Alternatively, the tongue is repeatedly and mercilessly cut off with sharp, cruel weapons, then meticulously sliced into countless small, agonizing pieces. These suffering tongues, because of the powerful and inescapable karmic forces of all sentient beings, their flesh tragically piles up like enormous, grotesque mountains of despair and suffering. Whether it's the tongue-plucking hell or the previous hell of tongue-plowing, the main point is our speech. Speaking harsh words, frivolous words, especially slander, slandering eminent monks and great virtuous ones, slandering bodhisattvas, slandering the true Dharma, slandering the Buddha. These kinds of karma are indeed extremely serious and profound. So when we speak in our daily lives, in these particular respects, we must be very careful. We should try our best not to go against the law of cause and effect. Otherwise, some people, perhaps because they are more eloquent, or some people are naturally inclined to pick on others' faults and love to talk about others' shortcomings. Even when others have no faults at all in front of them, it becomes a particularly big fault. As a result, in this very life, you may find yourself helpless, and others are also helpless. I once knew a monastic who, whenever others said something, would say, "Don't worry about it, their mouths are on their own faces." He liked to say things like that, but he himself cared a lot about it. He would say, "Today again someone said something to me.
Today again, someone said something quite unpleasant to me, and I feel really quite uncomfortable deep inside. So in this particular regard, for each and every one of us, truly, some people are naturally more pure-minded, and their speech is also more pure, and they don't like to talk about others' faults. Actually, for a practitioner, this is important. You need to observe yourself, and then consider the unfortunate beings in the horrifying excrement and urine hell. They are completely immersed in extremely filthy, putrid excrement, and deep inside this vile substance, there are countless small, vicious insects with sharp iron mouths, numbering in the tens of thousands, perhaps even more, tormenting them incessantly. Each insect has tens of thousands of heads, and each head has tens of thousands of mouths. Flames shoot out from these gaping mouths, creating a fiery spectacle, slowly burning the lifeless bodies of the beings down in hell. This is mainly the result of committing sexual misconduct in the past, or engaging in any impure or inappropriate acts within the sacred Buddha hall. Such are the karmic consequences. There is one particular hell called Copper Lock's Hell, which mainly uses, some say it is quite similar to the Black Line Hell, and its torments are truly severe, where the entire body is tightly bound with intensely burning copper ropes. There are indeed such vivid descriptions as well. Furthermore, there are also some instances that are like heavy restrictive shackles with fiercely burning copper locks meticulously placed around the neck, causing immense discomfort. The entire waist, the whole body, and all 4 limbs are locked up, completely locked up tightly. In this way, there is no freedom at all, absolutely no freedom at all whatsoever. Using burning instruments, the whole body is locked up, making it impossible to do anything. So when they were alive before, driven by an insatiable desire for worldly fame and material profit, they falsely pretended to genuinely understand the profound true Dharma and cunningly used various Buddhist teachings and principles to skillfully deceive and mislead others, thereby imposing certain restrictive conditions and limitations upon them, or through their own various and diverse actions, controlling the freedom of other individuals, whether people, animals, or other sentient beings. For example, if you were to tie up other living beings with ropes, or perhaps lock other sentient beings inside of a room and then close the door completely, constantly causing others pain, beings like these, they fall into the Copper Lock's hell. Then there is the truly terrifying flaming elephant's hell. Generally speaking, these are colossal elephants completely engulfed in raging flames, with their entire massive bodies burning intensely. The horrifying spectacle of these fiery elephants begins. In ancient India, there was a kind of elephant called a drunken elephant. After drinking alcohol, elephants would become extremely frenzied. These were called drunken elephants. Such fiery elephants would start trampling the beings in hell, crushing the hell beings to death over and over again. Or when they come into contact with your body, the hell beings would immediately burst into flames. So here, the main point is that there are certain actions, for example, drinking alcoholic beverages in the past, or perhaps deceiving other people, taking poison, using drugs. These kinds of grave offenses receive severe retribution here, extremely severe, harsh retribution here. They are relentlessly tormented by these intensely fiery elephants, these massive, intensely fiery, blazing elephants. Then the hell of flaming dogs is quite similar. Viciously fiery dogs bite you to death and ravenously devour you. Or you suffer intensely and agonizingly in the midst of these burning, ferocious packs of dogs. This excruciating torment is mainly the karmic result of having cruelly killed many innocent dogs in the past, a grave transgression. The same dire consequences and fiery suffering also apply to the fiery, flaming horses and the flaming oxen, which inflict similar pain. Generally, in the deepest parts of hell, whatever sentient beings you killed in your past life, they transform into terrifying fiery horses or fiery oxen. They take on these forms to torment you. For example, in the case of the fiery horses, you have no choice but to ride these horses. Once you mount them, your entire body is consumed by flames, leaving nothing behind. It's extremely painful. As for the fiery oxen, either their intensely burning horns will violently gore you, or their powerful hooves will mercilessly trample you to a certain death, or you ride the formidable ox, and it will also severely burn your body, or it will forcefully ram into your body with considerable impact, and so on. There are all sorts of ways. For example, in the human world, take a video game. There might be all kinds of animals in it, and you can play in all sorts of ways. In the same way, for all beings in hell, because their negative karma manifests, there are all kinds of agonizing and intensely painful experiences. There is nothing they do not feel, and indeed there are so very many of them. Then additionally, there are flaming mountains, hell, where volcanoes violently burning sentient beings just like a powerful and destructive volcanic eruption. Or for example, they are called to climb to the top of a mountain, and after you successfully reach the very top, you then go back down again. Throughout the whole process, your entire body is burned. Then there are the fiery stones, with blazing fiery slabs of stone everywhere, and you are standing there among them. Beings in hell have no other clothing, no other garments. So when your karma finally manifests itself, even your especially soft or incredibly tender feet are completely and utterly burned when you step upon them. The very same devastating consequence applies to the flaming bed's hell. On especially large beds of fire, the beings of hell lie down to sleep, and their bodies are continuously burned. The same is true for the flaming beam's hell. Burning iron pillars, massive iron beams, and sturdy iron plates are all gathered together in such formidable structures, and they burn without end ceaselessly. There are also flaming eagles' hell, where fierce fire eagles and vultures that come to devour them completely. Then there are teeth-sawing hell, where sharp saw-like teeth using intensely burning saws of fire, whether it's the excruciating process of sawing through their teeth or the agonizing experience of sawing directly through their bodies. Generally speaking, the profound and unbearable hell of sawing teeth is also intrinsically related to having previously used harsh, cruel, and cutting words, engaging in malicious slander, or resorting to demeaning ridicule in the past. These are all connected to it to some extent. Then there's the truly skin-flaying hell. In the past, humans frequently adorn themselves with luxurious fur coats, and for this purpose they perhaps tragically killed innocent sheep or majestic foxes, specifically for their valuable and sought-after pelts. Many people used to, especially like wearing animal skins in the past, quite often very much so. If you killed for your own sake, driven by purely selfish motives, you would also likely fall into the dreadful and agonizing hell of skinning. There's also the equally horrifying blood-drinking hell. Some ancient texts and traditions say that sentient beings are perpetually submerged in a vast churning sea of blood there, enduring endless suffering. So naturally, blood inevitably and forcefully enters their mouths and noses. Others say that for these unfortunate hell beings, there are many horrifying and relentless iron-mouthed insects that begin to viciously and completely suck all the vital life force, all the blood, agonizingly and slowly from your tormented body. There's also the intense hands-burning hell. Perhaps the unfortunate beings in hell are constantly forced to come into contact with it, and the moment they touch it, their hands are completely burned and ruined. There's also the feet-burning hell, where the feet are also forced to make contact. Because this karmic force manifests, that's truly how it is. So, as a result, the entire foot is also completely burned and utterly destroyed. Furthermore, there is also the terrifying thorns reversing hell. In the past, those individuals who were profoundly disrespectful to their parents or esteemed teachers, those inverted barbs will naturally chase after you and naturally pierce into your body. It's just like the previously mentioned Hill of Iron Salmali Trees hell, where one experiences the retribution indeed. There's also the Flaming Houses hell, where the entire room is filled with flames and you have to stay there for a very long time. There's also the terrifying Iron Houses hell, which is perpetually filled with intensely burning iron, a dreadful hell with many oppressive layers of iron and jagged stone both inside and out. There's also Flaming Wolves hell, viciously burning fire wolves, ferocious, viciously burning fire wolves that relentlessly and agonizingly devour your entire body, and so on. In these kinds of hells, each one also contains many smaller hells within it. For example, in the Flaming Wolves hell, within the Fire Wolf hell itself, there are also many smaller Flaming Wolves hell. Each of them contains many hells of its own. As for these smaller hells, some have 1 hell, some have 2 hells, some have 3 hells, and some have 4 hells. Some indeed have hundreds or even thousands, each with its own distinct and different name. Each one also has a unique and different form. The suffering experienced in each is also quite different. In all these hells, there is no happiness at all. So as we mentioned earlier, for example, whether it's the hell of fire dogs, fire horses, or fire oxen, Each of these hells possesses many distinct and varied categories within its confines. Some have just a few, while others have thousands or even tens of thousands. In this way, these kinds of hells truly are, just as we discussed earlier. If they didn't exist, and if there were really solid evidence for that, we would gladly accept it. It would be best if they didn't exist. If everything were heaven, if everything were happiness, it would be best if there were no hell at all. But in reality, that's just something we say to ourselves. If by any chance hell does exist, then is it really worth it for us to create the karma that leads to hell? Actually, as humans, we must recognize that we are different from animals, that we have wisdom. We should be people who are self-aware and self-understanding. If we truly are self-aware and self-understanding, then we should consider, what if hell really does exist? And if, depending on the karma we create, we could fall into any of these hells. So then, what exactly should we do? At the very least, while living in this human world, we should deeply reflect on this important matter. We must take this very seriously. That's why in the past, some great masters of previous generations, whenever they spoke about the suffering of samsara, everyone would become especially fearful and profoundly saddened by such circumstances. For example, there was a highly respected individual in the past named Geshe Fuchungwa. From his early childhood days until the very end of his life, he diligently and consistently studied the profound teachings contained within the Sutra of Wise and Foolish every single day without fail. When we read the Sutra of Wise and Foolish, it seems like it's just telling some stories, nothing special. But in reality, some great masters would often read certain scriptures over and over again, repeatedly, because these particular kinds of scriptures, you see, they truly are so very important. Those that talk about karma and cause and effect can have a truly profound impact on us. When we first start listening to them, they can we might not really want to truly listen, but if you genuinely don't want to listen and still continue to create negative karma, it's very much like covering your ears while attempting to steal a bell. It absolutely doesn't help at all in any meaningful way. If you deliberately do that, even though karma clearly and undeniably exists, and you keep creating it while thinking it's impossible, since there is a cause, then for anything in this entire world, the result will naturally come. It's only a matter of time. So we should really reflect on this ourselves, deeply reflect on this ourselves. Otherwise, many people around us don't believe in hell or heaven, don't truly believe in hell or heaven at all. If what they say is absolutely true, then we could just go along with them. But if what they are saying and presenting to us isn't entirely accurate or truthful, then we, as individual people, as human beings with our own thoughts and feelings, even if not for all sentient beings, at least for ourselves, should try to understand and make choices about cause and effect as early as possible. Next it says that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva tells Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, "Virtuous one, all of these are indeed the karmic results experienced by sentient beings in Jambudvapa." The sentient beings in Jambudvapa truly do experience such karmic results, these profound and significant consequences. So here he expresses this with deep emotion, and this statement is very important. Karmic force is immense. It can rival Mount Sumeru, it can be deeper than the vast ocean, and it can obstruct the path to enlightenment. This is something everyone should know. Many great masters, especially in the Han Chinese Buddhist tradition, often quote this line. But in Tibetan texts, it actually doesn't appear. So the karmic force is truly, truly enormous in its power and influence. What is its actual magnitude truly like? It can be as incredibly tall as the majestic Mount Sumeru. If we talk about karmic force, it is as lofty as the king of mountains. It is as deep as the great ocean. It can even obstruct the sacred path to enlightenment. It can even block the holy path itself, completely block the holy path itself. So karma is truly inconceivable, truly utterly inconceivable and unfathomable. If it had a form, it would definitely be taller than Mount Sumeru. If it had depth, it would be deeper than the ocean. That's why we often say that karma is truly unfathomable. This is indeed the fundamental reason why it can significantly obstruct the sacred path. In the words of my perfect teacher, we talk about this a great deal. Even after attaining Buddhahood, the Buddha still experienced the effects of karma, such as headaches and so on. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva also experienced karmic retribution. For example, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva ultimately experienced the results of karma. Even arhats are subject to karmic consequences and so forth. There are also differences among the sages. Of course, as mentioned here, karmic force is truly, indeed, very, very inconceivable. The treatise on the great perfection of wisdom also says, all karma possesses immeasurable power. It does not follow those who did not create it. The power of karma is boundless and limitless. What is its characteristic? It does not pursue those who did not create it. When the time for retribution arrives, it is neither destroyed nor lost. If the result of karma is about to manifest, then the karma will not be extinguished in the meantime, nor will it be lost because of this. So whenever the causes and conditions are fully present, not the slightest error will occur within the intricate workings of karma. Therefore, even if you deliberately kill a small insect, the law of cause and effect is infallible. Of course, when creating karma, it is essential to fulfill all four fundamental elements. These include the clear intention behind the action, the execution of the act itself, the successful completion of that action, and so on. All of these crucial elements are meticulously required. Otherwise, even if you commit the act, the karma is not accumulated. Although you have actually acted, for example, if you create karma unintentionally, will you truly receive the retribution for that? In such a case, indeed. Actually, it is not accumulated. And if it is not accumulated, generally speaking, you will not experience the retribution. So sometimes, for example, when we are out for a leisurely walk in the summer and accidentally step on tiny insects, or when we are making a fire and some insects come in, or when driving along the open road, sometimes there are various animals, like that day when we went to Daocheng. We didn't know. It seemed like a great number of sparrows sometimes flew directly into the car and tragically died. It truly made us feel very sad deep inside. But does this actually result in real karmic retribution? In fact, according to the view of the Abhidharmakosha, although the act is committed, the karma is not accumulated because there was no intentional motivation. So even if the act is done, it may not necessarily accumulate karma. Otherwise, if you haven't accumulated it, in the end there will be no experience of retribution. Because I didn't have the intention to kill that sentient being either, so the element of intention was also absent. But do we still need to confess? Is it necessary to dedicate merit? Actually, it is still necessary. So karma is an extremely vast and profound concept. Therefore, sentient beings should not take even small evils lightly, thinking they are utterly harmless and insignificant. After death, there will be retribution, and even the slightest will be experienced. So for us sentient beings, you must never ever think that it's just a small sin, so it shouldn't matter, or that the evil won't be significant. You absolutely must not think this way. Otherwise, you might end up deceiving both yourself and others without realizing it. After death, not even the slightest bit of karmic result will actually be spared from you in any way. The Sutra on the exposition of the sun expresses a similar view. Do not take small evils lightly, thinking they bring no significant harm. Though individual water drops are tiny, they gradually and persistently fill a large empty vessel. This profound concept is also quite similar to the teaching found in the Sutra of the wise and the foolish. So the intricate workings of karma are indeed very frightening and profoundly impactful. If we have created some karma, whether intentionally or unintentionally, even if it is just a very small evil, we will still inevitably face retribution for it. Therefore, once we truly understand the profound implications of negative karma, we should conscientiously try our best not to create it. Not creating it, in fact, is truly the wisest. Because if we do not create any negative karma, it is truly the very best for our spiritual practice and our journey towards enlightenment. It's not just us ordinary people. Even truly great revered monks and highly accomplished enlightened masters, they are especially afraid of creating karma. In the past, when our precious Guru was still alive, if there was absolutely anything that involved significant wrongdoing, he would unequivocally not do it, even if it appeared to be a very successful and highly profitable matter on the surface. If it involved especially great and profoundly negative karma, The great masters throughout history also took it very seriously and carefully without any doubt. I think I clearly mentioned this before, if I recall correctly, when Guru Padmasambhava came to Sami temple in Tibetan area to spread the Dharma. There was once a demon who very much desired to harm the revered Guru Padmasambhava. One day he cunningly manifested in the form of a humble monk. He then came directly before Guru Padmasambhava. At that time, he asked Guru Padmasambhava, "What are you truly afraid of?" Because he was merely pretending to be a monastic, he wanted to know something about it. Then Guru Padmasambhava said, "What I fear most is dikpa." What does dikpa mean? It has two meanings. One meaning is negative karma in Tibetan. Because Guru Padmasambhava, even though his deep and profound realization was as vast as the boundless open sky, his conduct in terms of accepting and rejecting actions was as meticulous as flour. So, in this case, what he said he feared the most, what Guru Padmasambhava meant was, what he feared most was sin, negative karma, dikpa. You know the word dikpa in Tibetan, right? Then, as for that demon, as soon as he heard dikpa, dikpa also has another meaning. It means scorpion. It probably doesn't mean spider, right? Now, as for Guru Padmasambhava, the scorpion, the venomous scorpion, he holds in his hand, that demon thought that Guru Padmasambhava was most afraid of venomous scorpions. The next day, he filled the entire area all around Sami with them. He then transformed himself into an especially huge and very venomous scorpion and appeared before him. Then Guru Padmasambhava, abiding in the profound state of Jogchen, he then subdued it with a powerful mudra, and after successfully subduing it, he firmly held it in his hand. The demon became utterly terrified. He swore that he would never harm Guru Padmasambhava again. Later, the powerful protector deity Peha is the revered protector of the profound secret teachings of Sami, a very significant and ancient monastery, the best of all protectors. Some of our truly great masters in the past often recited the offering verses to the protector deity, the revered Peha. They would do this regularly. When I used to go there in the past, there were still some signs of connection with the protector deity Pahar. Later on, sometimes in the images of Guru Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche is holding a venomous scorpion in his right hand. And nowadays, when many people visualize the protection wheel, there is also a scorpion present. Now, with computer processing, there are all kinds of especially beautiful scorpions, some of which don't even look very menacing as scorpions. Some are actually very beautiful scorpions. There are such ones too. As for Guru Padmasambhava, in the past, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in America, many of his personal emblems included a scorpion. At first, I wondered whether I should use a scorpion as well. I also had some thoughts about it when I was practicing the wrathful form of Guru Rinpoche at that time, and I did feel something quite strong, but in the end, I didn't really use it at all. Perhaps some of the special symbols in Vajrayana Buddhism may not be easily accepted by many people in modern society these days. So in the end, I didn't actually use it either in practice. Sometimes we might, as I mentioned earlier, encounter exactly the dikpa that even great masters truly fear the most. Dikpa means negative karma. In Tibetan it's called a dikpa. I've heard that some of you are studying Tibetan. Today I'll teach you the word dikpa. Not a good word, but a bad one. The term dikpa signifies evil or sin, representing negative aspects. In contrast, gewa denotes virtue, embodying positive moral qualities. See, you don't call out dikpa, but almost everyone readily calls out gewa with great enthusiasm. When it comes to even the smallest instance of dikpa, people tend to be afraid of it. When it comes to even small evils, it's best to be cautious and try to avoid them as much as possible. Actually, making choices based on cause and effect is still very, very important. Sometimes if you just look at things on the surface, some of our Dharma friends here do indeed pay a lot of attention to cause and effect in terms of making choices. Some might even pay too much attention to it. Sometimes if you don't really understand the precepts yourself and you don't really get these things, you might go a bit overboard. We should follow the precepts and follow the rules of cause and effect as taught by the Buddha when making choices. Don't just rely on your own imagination. Thinking this is dikpa, that is also evil. This isn't okay, that isn't okay either. Especially for those who have just become monks or just started learning Buddhism, they are particularly cautious, but this might not be good either. Next it says, even the closest of kin, father and son, will take different paths. Even if they meet again, no one can bear the consequences for another. Here, when specifically talking about the fundamental concept of cause and effect, for example, between a father and a son, who should have the closest relationship, but the karmic results of sentient beings mature individually. So when you die, each will go their separate ways, each will part from the other. It's impossible to live together on the same path. Even if they meet again in the bardo or at some other time, they still cannot truly take on each other's individual karma. For example, the father's karma cannot be borne by the son, and the son's karma cannot be borne by the father in any way. There is a passage in Sutra of the Buddha entering into parinirvana that also says explicitly and quite clearly, if the father commits evil, the son does not suffer the consequences. If the son commits evil, the father does not suffer the consequences. This means that if the father has committed evil acts in his own life, the son cannot take his place and bear it for him. If the son has committed faults or sins, then the father cannot take his place either. So, does this particular principle truly contradict what we have discussed earlier in our conversation? Is there a contradiction here? In fact, there is no contradiction. Earlier we said that if the father or son dies, one person can dedicate the merit of good deeds to the other, which is beneficial to them. But here, when it says that each cannot bear the other's karma, what does that mean? Once it has already ripened, there is nothing that can be done. From the perspective of the result, for example, if the son has already become a yak, then no matter how much the father wants to take his suffering in his place, it is impossible. If you are already in the bardo state, and the father is also in the bardo state, the karmic results for both have already manifested, and nothing can be done. So, whether it is so-called hell or so-called evil karma, each individual must solely bear it themselves. There is absolutely no way to take on each other's burdens. In our everyday worldly life, if I am carrying a particularly heavy burden today, can you help me carry it for a while? But this is very difficult to do. The consequences are summoned forth by each being's own individual karma. Once the karma has already fully manifested, there is absolutely nothing that can be done. So, while we still truly have this precious freedom now, we should really do our utmost best not to create any negative karma. If we create negative karma, the greatest harm to us, what is it? It is negative karma itself. Sutra of the Sublime Dharma of Clear Recollection also says this. Negative karma leads one to hell and consumes one with scorching heat. Negative karma obstructs nirvana. There is no greater enemy than it. Negative karma causes us to be reborn in hell and experience immeasurable pain of burning and scorching. If we have such negative karma, we simply cannot attain accomplishment or nirvana. So in our human world, in actual fact, so-called enemies are not really that truly frightening. The most frightening and terrifying thing is committing evil deeds and actions. Negative karma is the greatest enemy. All of us who have studied the Bodhisattva should know this. Afflictions and all negative karma are truly the most terrifying enemies that one can face. When it comes to the important chapter on patience, it is always considered that external enemies are not truly frightening. At most, they can only ever cause us to lose a single life. But if we, unfortunately, create negative karma, then we will experience suffering again and again, countless times, without end. Therefore, in our human world, some people who are truly very especially pitiful and suffering, it is most definitely the ripening of negative karma that was created in the past. On this crucial point, each and every one of us should have a very clear and profound understanding. If you yourself experience especially intense suffering, or feel that something is unfair, or if you have some really unique hardships that are quite different unlike others, then this is definitely due to your own past life, or even in earlier lives where you have created negative karma and now the results are clearly manifesting. This is something we should understand very clearly and deeply. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said, I rely on the power of the Tathagata. He briefly and clearly explained the karmic consequences of hell. He sincerely hoped that the virtuous one would listen very clearly. What I have carefully said should be abundantly clear. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva then replied, I have actually known for a long time, since ages past, about the retribution of the 3 lower realms, but this time, for the benefit of these sentient beings, I sincerely hope that, for the sake of the evil beings of future generations to come, I myself do not need you to explain it to me. You are a Bodhisattva, and so am I. As Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, you know this as well. On Mount Ime, I'm quite formidable. Between Mount Juhua and Mount Ime, Mount Juhua is relatively small, so I'm quite powerful. Our practice site should also be such powerful. As Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, I am always depicted riding an elephant. I'm often on the mountaintop and I can emit light. As for you, a little bhikshu... So Samantabhadra Bodhisattva said, I have long known this. It's nothing special, but I forsake of sentient beings in future. For all the degenerate and wicked beings of this Dharma-ending age, and for all future generations, I implore you to speak extensively about the profound sufferings of the evil destinies, so that after many sentient beings hear your compassionate words, they can truly take refuge in the teachings of Buddhism, and thus avoid the dreadful fate of falling into hell in the future. Because for those sentient beings with virtuous roots, when they hear about the sufferings of the hellish fire, they quickly develop renunciation and immediately practice virtue and abandon evil. Just as it is stated in the 400 verses on the middle way, if ordinary beings also knew all the sufferings of samsara, if ordinary people understood the pain of samsara and the hell realms, then in that very instant both body and mind would be destroyed. If ordinary people knew about the hells or the suffering of wandering in samsara, in that very moment they might not even dare to go on living. Both their body and mind would be devastated. But unfortunately, as ordinary people, we simply do not truly know. We ourselves are completely and utterly unaware. But those of us who are even a little bit wise should at least reflect and look at ourselves. At the very least, perhaps in our past lives we were something or other. And we can infer this through logical reasoning. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva respectfully addressed him. Here they show great respect for each other. In fact, we don't even know exactly who is addressing whom. Anyway, it's just 2 bodhisattvas. The 2 bodhisattvas are both being extremely deferential to each other. From what I see in our Tibetan region, some people in certain places are all extremely humble with each other. In some specific cases, people always reply to others with lag so, a respectful way of answering yes in the Tibetan language. But whether they genuinely feel that way deep inside is hard to say. He said, "Virtuous one, as for the severe retributions of hell, what I know is just like this." There are still some things that need to be mentioned here. Perhaps here, compared to the previous descriptions of hell, they are basically the same. But here, perhaps in some aspects, he has made things a bit more detailed. There may not be much difference. Basically, these are things that were already mentioned before. There are also some hells where the tongues of the wrongdoers are taken. Just like the truly terrifying hell of tongue extraction and the equally dreadful hell of ploughing tongues mentioned earlier. Then powerful oxen are cruelly used to plough deeply on top of them. There are also some other specific hells where wrongdoers' hearts are taken. In Chinese translations, they are usually referred to as wrongdoer. But in some of our Tibetan translations in hell, the beings are not called person. The beings in hell, since we talk about the 6 realms, there is a difference between the human realm and the hell realm. So in many places in the Sutra of Ksitigarbha, the people in hell are referred to as people. But when I translate it into Tibetan, I always use sentient beings. Because strictly speaking, from the perspective of the 6 realms, when one is in hell, they are no longer human, right? At that particular time, there will be particular frightening hells where they take the hearts of the wrongdoers or the beings in hell, and then suddenly many malevolent yakshas begin to violently eat the wrongdoers' hearts. There are also some hells where beings are boiled in cauldrons, in intensely hot water, in violently boiling water, where the tormented bodies of wretched wrongdoers or suffering hell beings are cruelly boiled. There are also terrifying hells with searingly burning copper pillars, where the unfortunate beings in hell are agonizingly made to embrace them. And in some hells, intense and scorching flames are used to burn the suffering beings. There are also some hells that are incredibly cold, where the torment is equally severe, where beings truly suffer in harsh, icy, snowy environments. And in some other hells, beings suffer in endless filth and excrement. There are also hells with solely flying caltrops, exclusively for punishment, which was quite possibly an ancient and brutal torture device. The other day, I found myself wondering if it's somewhat akin to the current coronavirus, which also features those distinctive spikes, as scientists and researchers have discovered and documented. It functions as a torture device in a similar fashion, piercing through its victims again and again, causing immense suffering and distress, burning the bodies and minds of beings in hell. There are also hells with many fire lances, where unfortunate beings are tormented with intensely hot fire lances. In some hells, malevolent rakshasas and ferocious wild oxen are cruelly used to ram victims to their agonizing death, violently goring their chests and backs. In some hells, the hands and feet of these suffering beings are completely burned away, leaving them utterly disfigured. In some terrifying hells, poisonous snakes coil themselves around the body continuously from the feet all the way up to the head. Some texts also mention small, burning, poisonous snakes, which enter the body right away, then pierce through the whole body from within, burning it. This is how it's described in the texts. In some hells, there are burning hot iron dogs that constantly drive people with great force around everywhere, constantly chasing and biting them without respite. In some hells, formidable iron mules are specifically used to initiate the agonizing torment, just as described in various other hells. These include burning iron donkeys, burning iron mules, or even burning iron horses, all contributing to the relentless suffering inflicted upon the condemned souls. Riding upon these sentient living beings and then completely burn their entire physical bodies, and so on and so forth. This kind of thing is also truly quite extremely terrifying indeed. This is quite similar to the previous methods mentioned just before. Virtuous one, such retributions. There are hundreds and thousands of different kinds in each hell without exception. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said to Samantabhadra Bodhisattva regarding hell, the retributions in each hell vary greatly indeed, are all different and of all kinds. Moreover, in hell, the implements of karmic retribution truly are nothing other than burning copper and burning iron, as well as intensely burning stones and fiercely burning fire. Here, the vast majority of what is being described pertains to the hot hells. Therefore, whether it is all the weapons here, or everything that is clearly perceived and distinctly and completely audibly heard, they are all made up of these four burning things. Copper, iron, stone, and fire. Everything is made of these four basic substances alone. Apart from these four, there is almost nothing else that exists in those places. All of these are specifically meant for those with hearts of iron and stone. Here, iron and stone, as well as fire and copper, right? These four substances are the direct result of the collective karma of sentient beings from their actions. In fact, once someone enters in hell, all of these, whether it's the places outside or even the water present in those realms, are all things that bring suffering to sentient beings. If we are reborn in the pure land of ultimate bliss, there the very ground itself is made of brilliant lapis lazuli, the earth is pure gold, and there are indeed 8 kinds of truly meritorious water. In all directions, absolutely everything, in every single aspect, brings us profound happiness. According to some passages in the Jewel Treasury Treatise, which specifically cite the famous The King of Samadhi Sutra and Prajnaparamita Sutra, to explain the principle that all phenomena are only mind. So at this point, whether it's sentient beings in hell or sentient beings in the pure lands, all external appearances are in fact manifestations of our own mind. This is a very profound principle, but if we talk about it briefly in such a short time, it remains just a theoretical concept. It might be quite difficult for us to fully accept this right away, but if we consistently engage in long-term practice and earnestly study the profound teachings of Mahayana Buddhism over time, through careful listening and contemplation, we should be able to understand it clearly. As you know, it turns out we sentient beings are caught in confusion and delusion. In this way, whether it's the human realm, hell, or heaven, they are all created by the mind alone without any exception. This is indeed a very profound and important theory to understand deeply. On this point, we also hope that in the future, as you continue your studies, you will delve deeper into it. If you truly understand these fundamental principles, then even when you experience suffering in the human world, or even when you experience immense happiness and joy in the human world, you will have a deeper understanding. You will possess another, much deeper state of realization. Of course, if we discuss this on a deeper level, according to the Mahayana sutras and treatises, all phenomena are mind only. If you don't understand this on the karmic perceptions of sentient beings, hell does indeed exist. Hungry ghosts do indeed exist. Animals and humans also truly exist. As for the very reasoning behind their existence, some of it can be directly perceived by us, and some of it can be inferred through reasoning. Some things are directly perceived, while others are known through inference. This is something you should understand. Otherwise, what are some people truly like in today's world? They neither actively use direct perception, nor do they rely on inference at all. Whatever they want to accept, no matter what. They say, yes, this is good. But if something doesn't fit discriminating thoughts, they just think, this is wrong. This is superstition, this is just folk belief. In fact, actually, this kind of attitude is very unscientific indeed, and also unreasonable. Because if we are to accept something, you shouldn't do it so casually, like, okay, as long as you accept it, that's fine, yes. It can't be so simple. If you don't accept it, that's not right. People nowadays always have a certain habit. As for this habit, they don't even consider whether something is reasonable or not. If you only care about whether something feels emotionally acceptable, that's enough for you. As long as it fits your feelings, fits your senses, if you feel it exists, then it exists. If you feel it doesn't exist, then yes, it doesn't exist. In that case, you're only focusing on what feels right emotionally. But when it comes to reason, science also emphasizes reason. Buddhism is completely different from other religions. To be honest, we're not trying to praise ourselves and disparage others. Let's look at many religions in the world. After a certain point, in the end, ultimately they become a matter of faith. But Buddhism is not quite like that. We certainly do place a significant emphasis on faith, but ultimately it truly comes down to wisdom. If something cannot stand up to wisdom at all, if it simply cannot be firmly established, then Buddhism can completely reject that particular theory and not accept that viewpoint. Therefore, as Buddhists, we should always understand the principle, whether it's about hell or any other kind of knowledge, it's best to apply our own wisdom and discernment. You need to examine whether it is reasonable or not with critical thinking. You can also observe whether it makes sense or not, but many people tend to be more emotional about it. Oh, this is right, that is wrong. I'm interested in this, I'm not interested in that. This is a state of discriminating thoughts that we have. But what's even more important is, if hell exists or if hell does not exist, then what should we do? So as a person, if you yourself also believe that your own wisdom is quite good, then it's best to use this wisdom to observe and then come to your own conclusion. That is the best way. If we speak extensively about the karmic retributions of hell and so on, in a single hell, there are hundreds of thousands of kinds of suffering. Let alone the many others, like the 18 great hells. There are the 18 great hells, 500 hells, and thousands upon thousands of hells. The experiences within each hell are truly terrifying and profoundly disturbing. When we first went to the sacred Mount Juhua, there were some vivid and unsettling paintings depicting the various realms of hell at Mount Juhua. At that time, I truly felt they were especially cruel. After seeing them, I also felt they were very frightening indeed. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna also said very explicitly in the letter to a friend, it is said that if we see images of hell with our own eyes or hear stories about hell being told to us from various different sources around, the things that we hear and that we truly see, if they then indeed cause us pain, then to actually experience the ripened results. Such truly terrifying states go without saying. So in Tibetan Buddhism, generally speaking, it is understood that at the entrance of the assembly hall, there are the 4 heavenly kings as symbols of protection for Buddhism. Then there is the Wheel of 6 Realms. And you need to understand this Wheel of 6 Realms. If you do not practice virtuous deeds well, you will fall into the 3 lower realms. So on the surface, it may seem like just a symbolic representation, but in fact it is extremely important. As practitioners in this very brief human life indeed, I have always believed this. We should endeavor to study more deeply and thoroughly, and even if the knowledge we acquire is just a small amount, can it truly and profoundly change our own personal behavior and actions? Otherwise, if we keep studying, we learn and then forget, and even if we don't forget, if we just leave it as theory or keep it in books, then when we truly need to use it, a lot of the theories and many things we've heard become very useless. Many great masters and accomplished practitioners of the past didn't spend long time relying on gurus, but their efficiency was high and their achievements were great. Some of us, however, have spent a long time relying on gurus, having studied for 10, 8, 20 or even 30 years. But what have we gained? In the end, it's just a heap of wrong views, a heap of afflictions and a heap of suffering. If you return to your hometown like this, you gain nothing at all. Not only do you gain nothing, but if you end up accumulating a heap of negative karma, it's not worth it. That's why many people travel far to seek knowledge. In the past, many great masters went to Tibetan area, to India, to different places, including to Han regions, and there were also people who went to study. When they returned, they should have come back fully loaded with achievements. They should have gained everything, completely and fully, so to speak. Some people, although they haven't personally gone to other places, nowadays, thanks to various convenient methods, they too are also able to readily gain new knowledge. If you've spent some time and listened to some classes, then you should also take time in private to reflect deeply. Don't be like some of the lectures in schools nowadays, where you pay a few dozen yuan and just listen to a teacher boast and talk on and on. After listening, that's it. Nothing more comes of it. In that case, I think both the listener and the speaker are just simply putting on an entire performance, really. It doesn't have much real significance. So our time is so precious. Time is life itself, as many people agree. Since time is so valuable, we should make the most of every minute and every hour to apply the teachings we've received as much as possible. This is very important. Now, here at the end, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva says, today it is thanks to the Buddha's miraculous power and your questions, Venerable One, that I have briefly explained the situation in the hell realms. If I were to explain it in detail and at length, even an entire great kalpa would not be enough to finish describing it. This particular chapter on the various names of the hells is now complete. Next is the chapter, The Praise of the Tathagata, and what other chapters about? My favorite is the chapter benefiting the living and the deceased, because when it talks about benefits and merits later on, it makes me feel like there is a bit of hope. In the chapter on the names of the hells, there is a particular sense of loss and even fear. The chapter on benefiting the living and the deceased is the 7th chapter. The previous chapter, The Praise of the Tathagata, is also quite good, still acceptable, but the chapter on benefiting the living and the deceased is especially meritorious. There is a chapter later on that I remember is relatively quite long. That's all for today. Thank you.
Bandara Banma Sadar